Emma sat at that dinner table, trying to pretend everything was normal, even though the words Lauren threw at her kept echoing in her mind. It wasn't the first time Lauren had spoken like that, but this time something inside Emma felt heavier. She looked around and saw everyone laughing, acting like the comment was harmless. No one noticed how Emma's hands tightened around her napkin, or how she forced a small smile, so no one would ask questions. She had learned long ago that showing hurt only gave Lauren more power. For years, Emma had been the one who stepped up whenever the family needed anything. If her parents needed help with bills, she was there. If someone needed a ride to the airport, she woke up early without complaint. She worked long hours, saved carefully, and tried to make sure everyone felt supported. She thought that being dependable would make her feel loved. But with Lauren around, it always felt like whatever Emma did was never enough. Lauren had a way of turning a simple moment into a reminder that Emma was beneath her. Growing up, Lauren was always praised, always defended, always excused. Emma tried to ignore the imbalance, hoping that adulthood would change things. But adulthood had only sharpened Lauren's nature. The more Emma achieved, the more Lauren tried to cut her down. What hurt most was not the insults themselves, but how easily everyone accepted them. That night at dinner, Emma realized she was exhausted. She wasn't tired from work or routine. She was tired from carrying the weight of a family that didn't see her worth. She felt a quiet shift inside her, something small but strong, a voice telling her she didn't have to keep allowing this. She didn't make a scene. She didn't respond to Lauren's comment. She simply finished her meal quietly, but her silence no longer came from fear. It came from clarity. After dinner, she went home and sat alone in her living room. The house was quiet, yet her thoughts were loud. She wondered how long she had convinced herself that things would get better. She realized she had always taken on the role of the strong one, the peacemaker, the fixer. But no one ever asked if she needed anything. They were so used to her holding everything together that they forgot she was a person with feelings. Emma didn't cry that night. Instead, she felt something settle inside her, a decision forming slowly but firmly. She was done letting Lauren dictate how she felt about herself. She was done letting her family normalize disrespect. She wasn't planning revenge, and she wasn't planning a dramatic confrontation. She was simply choosing herself for the first time. And that simple decision, quiet and unseen, was where everything truly began to change. Emma grew up watching the same pattern repeat itself so many times that it started to feel normal. Lauren was always the one who got the praise, the attention, and the easy forgiveness. If Lauren broke something, Emma was asked to help clean it. If Lauren caused trouble, Emma was told to be understanding. And if Lauren said something rude, everyone brushed it off with a laugh and a comment like, "That's just how Lauren is." Even as a child, Emma noticed the difference, but she didn't know how to explain it. She only knew that when she spoke, people listened politely, and when Lauren spoke, people reacted as if every word was special. Their parents, Mark and Diane, never meant to hurt Emma, but they were so used to keeping peace by giving Lauren what she wanted that they didn't see how unfair it felt. They told themselves that Emma was strong enough to handle things, while Lauren was sensitive, even though it was Emma who took the hits. Whenever Lauren got into trouble at school or argued with friends, she came home angry and took it out on Emma. She would blame Emma for things she never did, call her names, or make comments that cut deeper than she realized. Emma tried to defend herself at first, but every time she spoke up, she was told she was overreacting or making problems bigger than they were. Eventually, Emma learned to stay quiet, not because she agreed, but because she didn't want to start another argument that she would somehow be blamed for. As they grew older, the dynamic never changed. Lauren became even more confident, even more certain that the world revolved around her. Emma became quieter, more thoughtful, more careful about what she said and how she acted. She always felt she had to earn her place in the family, while Lauren had hers handed to her. And even though Emma grew into someone dependable and steady, she still felt invisible when Lauren was in the room. The small hurts added up. Birthdays where Lauren stole the spotlight, holidays where Emma's accomplishments were brushed aside, family moments where her feelings were ignored. Emma kept swallowing everything, believing that keeping peace was the right thing to do. She convinced herself that being the calm, forgiving one made her stronger. But deep down, she felt something tightening each year, a quiet resentment growing in the spaces where her voice should have been. Emma didn't hate Lauren. She didn't even wish her harm. She just wished, for once, someone would notice when she was hurting. She wished someone would stand up for her the way she always tried to stand up for others. But no one ever did. Looking back, Emma realized her whole childhood taught her one lesson. Her feelings came second. And without knowing it, she carried that lesson into adulthood, until the day things finally changed. When Emma finally landed the leadership role she had worked toward for years, it felt like everything she sacrificed had been worth it. She had stayed late, taken extra classes, and pushed herself even on the days she felt exhausted. Her new position at the architecture firm wasn't just a job. It was proof that her hard work mattered. It was one of the first moments in her life where she felt genuinely proud of herself. But the excitement faded quickly when she saw Lauren's reaction. Instead of congratulating her, Lauren just raised an eyebrow and said, "Well, good for you, I guess," as if the achievement was something trivial. Emma tried to brush it off, telling herself Lauren might just be having a bad day. But soon she started hearing things from other family members. Comments that didn't sound like innocent jokes, comments Lauren had clearly planted. They would say things like, "Lauren thinks you're getting a big head now," or "She said you're too focused on work and missing out on real life." Emma was confused at first. She had never tried to show off. In fact, she hadn't even mentioned the promotion until someone else asked. But Lauren had always struggled with sticking to one career. She tried nursing, then real estate, then a small online business, every time quitting when it became difficult. Watching Emma succeed so steadily seemed to hit a soft spot she didn't want to admit. Instead of dealing with her insecurity, Lauren turned it into judgment. She spoke as if Emma's success was something shameful. Emma could feel the shift whenever she walked into a family gathering. Suddenly, people acted cautious, like they were waiting for her to start bragging. It hurt because Emma had never been that person. But Emma stayed quiet. She didn't confront Lauren, hoping things would settle naturally. She believed that with time, her sister would get over whatever she was feeling. Maybe she thought Lauren would eventually show some pride. But that never happened. The more Emma worked, the more bitter Lauren became. The comments grew sharper. "She's obsessed with being important," Lauren would say loudly enough for people to hear. "She only works because she has no life outside that office." It didn't matter that Emma was building something meaningful. To Lauren, anything that made Emma shine felt like a threat. Emma tried to stay focused on her career, telling herself she didn't need her sister's approval. But deep down, she wished for something so simple, just a moment where Lauren would be genuinely happy for her. That wish never came. Instead, every step Emma took forward made Lauren push harder to pull her back. And even though Emma didn't see it yet, the distance between them was growing in a way that no apology could fix. When Emma finally felt ready to buy her first home, it was supposed to be a happy moment. She had worked for years, saved every extra dollar, and dreamed of having a place where she could breathe without feeling judged. She pictured a small porch, quiet evenings, and a space that felt like her own. But before she could even close the deal, the excitement turned heavy. It started with a phone call from her mother, Diane, who sounded unusually tense. She asked, "Why didn't you tell us you were planning to move so far away?" Emma was confused. The house she chose was only 20 minutes from her parents' place. It wasn't far at all, but the tone in her mother's voice made her stomach tighten. Then her father, Mark, joined the call and added, "Is this your way of distancing yourself from us? You know we rely on you." Emma didn't understand what was happening until she heard the same phrases repeated, almost word for word, from multiple relatives over the next week. "Lauren says," Lauren mentioned, "Lauren told us," and suddenly everything became clear. Lauren had spun a story that made Emma sound selfish and uncaring. She told their parents that Emma was leaving them behind, that she didn't want to help anymore, and that she was too focused on her career to care about family. She painted Emma as someone who was running away, abandoning responsibilities, and trying to act better than everyone. Emma felt a deep sting, not just from the lies, but from how easily her parents believed them. Whenever she tried to explain, they cut her off. Diane would say, "We just don't want to lose you." Mark would add, "Family should stay close. Moving is a big decision, Emma." Not once did they ask if Emma was happy. Not once did they question whether Lauren might be twisting things. They simply accepted Lauren's version of the story because they always had. Emma kept calm, but inside she felt something breaking. She had spent her entire life being patient, dependable, and understanding. Meanwhile, Lauren had spent hers criticizing, judging, and manipulating. Yet somehow Emma was the one being questioned. The hurt settled like a weight in her chest. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about seeing the truth she had ignored for years. Lauren's jealousy had seeped into every corner of their family, and Emma was finally noticing how hard she had worked to overlook it. One evening, after another frustrating conversation with her parents, Emma sat alone in her car outside the new house she hoped to buy. She didn't even get out. She just sat there quietly, feeling the mix of pride and pain. For the first time, she admitted to herself that the family she worked so hard to support had never really supported her back. It was a painful realization, but a necessary one, and it marked the beginning of a change she could no longer avoid. The night of the family dinner should have been simple. Everyone was gathered around the big table, talking about work, vacations, and weekend plans. Emma tried to stay quiet, focusing on her food, hoping the night would pass without any drama. But Lauren never missed a chance to make herself the center of attention, especially when Emma was around. It happened so casually that no one even blinked. Someone mentioned how busy Emma had been lately, and before she could say anything, Lauren leaned back in her chair with that familiar smirk and said, "Some people just need to feel important, even when no one actually cares." The room went silent for a split second, and then, just like always, the laughter started. A few chuckles, a few smiles, and a few people shaking their heads like Lauren was harmless. But Emma felt the words hit her harder than anything before. They weren't new, not really. Lauren had always said things like that. But after everything Emma had been dealing with, the home-buying guilt, the jealousy, the years of being overlooked, this time it cut deeper. She felt heat rise in her face, not from embarrassment, but from something she hadn't felt in a long time. Anger mixed with clarity. She didn't say a word back. She simply placed her fork down gently, wiped her hands, and told the table she needed a moment. No one asked if she was okay. No one noticed how her voice shook. They just nodded and kept eating, still talking as if nothing meaningful had happened. Emma stepped outside and stood on the porch, letting the cool air settle her breathing. She had been hurt by Lauren before, but something about this moment felt different. It felt like a final line had been crossed. She thought about all the years she had tried to be the kind one, the forgiving one, the responsible one. She thought about every time she swallowed her feelings just to keep peace. She thought about how she allowed herself to shrink so Lauren could feel bigger. And standing there in that quiet moment, she understood something she had never admitted to herself. She had been giving Lauren power over her for her entire life. She wasn't weak. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't the small person Lauren tried to paint her as. She had simply been trying too hard to be the daughter everyone needed instead of the woman she wanted to become. Something inside her snapped, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a quiet way that felt stronger than any outburst. It was the kind of snap that changes a person forever. Emma went back inside with a calm expression, but the shift was already happening. She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She didn't give Lauren the reaction she expected. Instead, she sat through the rest of dinner quietly, observing everything with new eyes. She realized she no longer needed to fight for approval. She no longer needed to explain her choices. She no longer needed to accept the role everyone placed on her. This was the moment her life began to take a different direction. A direction where she would finally stop letting Lauren's words control her. A direction where she would take her power back without shouting, without revenge plots, and without trying to win anyone's love. This was the moment Emma's story of quiet, steady revenge truly began. Emma didn't make any announcements or dramatic speeches. She simply stopped showing up in the ways she always had. It began quietly. She answered fewer calls. She stopped offering help before anyone asked. And she no longer stepped in to solve the problems that everyone used to hand over to her without hesitation. For the first time in her life, she let people handle their own messes. When her parents called asking if she could come over to look at a broken faucet, she gently said she was busy and suggested they call a plumber. When her aunt needed help organizing a family event, Emma wished her luck, but didn't volunteer to do all the work. Even when small arguments broke out in the family group, she didn't jump in to calm things down. She simply stayed quiet and watched from the outside. She had spent her whole life thinking she owed everyone her time and energy. Now, she was learning that silence could be a form of freedom. Emma moved into her new house soon after. The moment she unlocked the door and stepped inside, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: space to breathe. The house wasn't huge or fancy, but it was hers. There were no voices telling her she was selfish, no guilt waiting for her in the hallway, no sister ready to twist her achievements into faults. It was a place where she could exist without feeling like a shadow. She filled the room slowly, choosing what she liked instead of what others expected. She placed her work files neatly in a corner, hung soft lights in the living room, and set up a small reading chair by the window. Each change felt like reclaiming another piece of herself. She woke up early to make coffee without rushing to help anyone. She worked, she ate, she rested, all without interruption. She began choosing her peace over old obligations, and it showed in her voice, her posture, even in her eyes. Meanwhile, Lauren mistook Emma's silence for defeat. She joked to relatives that Emma finally realized her place. She acted like Emma pulling away was proof she had won some invisible competition she had invented years ago. She believed Emma was hiding because she couldn't handle being mocked. She took Emma's distance as weakness, never imagining it was strength. Lauren felt victorious, but only because she didn't understand Emma at all. What Lauren didn't know was that Emma's life was becoming fuller than ever. Her career grew, her circle of friends expanded, and she started meeting people who valued her without taking advantage of her. She no longer felt drained from giving everything she had just to stay accepted. She wasn't disappearing, she was rebuilding. And while Lauren spent her time celebrating what she thought was Emma's retreat, she didn't see the quiet shift happening behind the scenes. She didn't see the way Emma's absence began exposing cracks in the family. She didn't see how much they had depended on Emma to keep things stable. She didn't see how much harder life became without Emma stepping in. Lauren believed she had pushed Emma out for good. But the truth was simple. Emma hadn't stepped back to lose. She stepped back to find herself. And that choice was only the beginning of what was coming next. Lauren had always lived like nothing could touch her. She talked loudly, acted confidently, and believed she was smarter than everyone around her. For years, Emma watched her move through life without facing consequences. But after Emma stepped out of the family circle, something strange began to happen. It was as if all the things Lauren had avoided were finally catching up to her. It started at her job. Lauren had always argued with co-workers and ignored instructions, but management tolerated it because she charmed her way out of trouble. This time, though, someone new took over, a manager who didn't care about excuses or attitude. After one too many heated arguments, Lauren was called into the office and told her employment was terminated. She blamed everyone else, but deep down she knew the truth. She had pushed too far. Losing her job shook her more than she admitted. She tried to hide it from the family, pretending she was between opportunities, but her frustration leaked into everything she said. Then, not long after that, her boyfriend Ryan decided he'd had enough. He had started to see the patterns Emma had lived with her whole life. The lies, the manipulation, the constant need to be right. One night, after an argument where Lauren blamed him for something he didn't do, he simply packed a bag and left. He didn't shout, he didn't try to explain. He just said, "I deserve better than this," and walked out the door. Lauren stood frozen, unable to believe someone would actually leave her. She wasn't used to being the one abandoned. She called him repeatedly, but he didn't respond. She told everyone he was immature, but the truth was harder to swallow. He had seen through her, and he didn't want a future with someone who treated people the way she did. Without a job and without a partner, Lauren tried to hold on to her image. She kept buying expensive clothes, going out to fancy places, and pretending she still had control. The bills piled up quickly. Credit cards maxed out. Late fees added pressure she never knew before. She couldn't ask friends because most of them had grown tired of her attitude. She couldn't ask her boyfriend because he was gone. And she couldn't ask her parents without explaining why she suddenly needed money. For the first time in her life, Lauren felt her world shrinking. She began calling Emma more often, not to apologize, but to slowly test if Emma was still available to rescue her. At first, she pretended she just wanted to catch up. She asked how the house was, how work was going, and if Emma was still doing okay financially. Her voice sounded lighter than usual, forced, almost careful. Emma could hear the strain underneath the words. She knew exactly what her sister was doing. Lauren tried again a few days later, hinting at temporary money problems and acting like she was embarrassed. She spoke softly, something she rarely did, trying to sound vulnerable. But Emma didn't step in this time. She didn't offer comfort or solutions. She listened but didn't volunteer help. And that scared Lauren more than anything. She wasn't used to Emma being unavailable. She wasn't used to needing the sister she had mocked and belittled for years. Karma hadn't come loudly. It came quietly, piece by piece, until Lauren had no choice but to turn to the only person she had always counted on to fix her life. Emma. But Emma wasn't the same girl she used to control. Not anymore. Lauren finally showed up at Emma's doorstep one quiet afternoon. She stood there with a soft smile that didn't match the tension in her eyes. It was the first time she had come to Emma's new house, and Emma could already tell something was off. Lauren looked tired in a way she couldn't hide with makeup or forced confidence. Still, Emma stepped aside and let her in, choosing to stay polite. Lauren acted unusually gentle. She complimented the house, asked about Emma's job, and tried to sound supportive. Emma answered politely, but kept a distance. She had learned by now that kindness from Lauren usually came with a hidden reason. The conversations felt too careful, too practiced, like Lauren was reading from a script instead of speaking honestly. After a few minutes, Lauren finally sighed and sat down at the edge of Emma's couch. "I'm going through a lot right now," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I lost my job. Ryan left, and money's been tight. I just need a little help to get back on my feet." She explained everything as if she expected Emma to agree instantly. That had always been the pattern. Lauren created chaos, and Emma cleaned it up. Emma didn't respond right away. She simply nodded, letting Lauren talk. She didn't show anger or pity, just calm, steady listening. Lauren took that silence as a sign she was winning. She kept going, adding small compliments, trying to make Emma feel responsible for her. But then, as Emma stepped into the kitchen to grab a glass of water, Lauren's phone rang. She thought Emma was too far to hear, but Emma paused quietly near the doorway. Lauren answered the call, her voice low but sharp. "I'm sure she'll help," she said. "She owes me. I made her strong all these years. She wouldn't survive without me. Trust me, she'll come through. She always does." Emma didn't move. She didn't gasp or walk away dramatically. She just stood there, letting the words settle. It wasn't shock she felt, it was confirmation. Everything she had suspected about Lauren's intentions was now clear. Lauren wasn't here to fix their relationship. She wasn't sorry. She didn't care about peace. She simply ran out of options and expected Emma to rescue her like always. When Lauren ended the call, Emma walked back into the room and placed the glass of water on the table. She sat across from her sister, looking calm, almost peaceful. Lauren didn't notice the shift. She just continued talking about her financial struggles. Then Emma finally spoke. Her voice was soft but firm. "I'm not able to help you, Lauren." Lauren blinked, confused. "Wait, what?" "I'm not giving money," Emma said. "And I can't take on your problems anymore." Lauren's face twisted in disbelief. "Are you serious? After everything I've done for you?" Emma didn't respond to that. She didn't bring up the phone call. She didn't list the years of insults, jealousy, or manipulation. She didn't argue or try to explain her decision. She simply repeated her answer. No, it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was final. Lauren stood up, furious, and accused Emma of being selfish. She insisted Emma was turning into the exact person she always pretended not to be. But Emma didn't react. She didn't defend herself. She let Lauren storm out, slamming the door behind her. And for the first time in her life, Emma didn't feel guilty. She felt free. When Lauren stormed out of Emma's house that day, she didn't stay quiet for long. She went straight to their parents, Mark and Diane, and told them her version of the story. According to Lauren, Emma had changed, become cold, and refused to help her own sister in a time of need. She painted herself as the victim, and as usual, their parents believed her without asking Emma what really happened. Mark called Emma first, his voice filled with disappointment. He asked how she could turn her back on family. Diane followed, saying Lauren was hurting and Emma should have been there for her. Emma listened calmly, not defending herself, not arguing. She had already decided she wouldn't fight for a place in a system that had never protected her. She simply said, "I'm choosing what's healthy for me." Her parents didn't understand. Not yet. The truth came out a week later at a family gathering. Everyone had gathered for a small celebration at their parents' home. Emma went because she didn't want to cut ties completely, she just wanted distance. Lauren arrived late, already upset, and the tension in her face was obvious. When she saw Emma sitting quietly at the table, something inside her cracked. She started making loud comments about how some people think they're too good for family now. Emma stayed silent, but Lauren didn't stop. She stepped closer, complaining about how Emma refused to help her, how Emma owed her, how Emma was selfish after everything I've done. Her voice grew sharper and more out of control. Then, without warning, she snapped completely. In front of everyone, Lauren shouted, "She wouldn't be anything without me. I made her strong. She was nothing until I pushed her." The room fell silent. Mark and Diane stared at their oldest daughter like they were seeing her clearly for the first time. Her twisted expression, her bitterness, the entitlement dripping from every word. It was all exposed in a way Emma could never have explained. Relatives shifted uncomfortably. Someone whispered, "Wow," under their breath. Lauren kept ranting, but the damage was already done. She wasn't convincing anyone. She was revealing everything. Emma didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. She simply stood and said, "This is why I stepped back." Her voice was steady, not angry, just tired and honest. And suddenly, everyone understood what that meant. Later that evening, after Lauren had stormed out again, Mark and Diane sat beside Emma with heavy, apologetic expressions. Diane said softly, "We didn't see it. We didn't want to see it." Mark added, "We're sorry. You didn't deserve any of that." Their voices shook, not from anger, but from regret. Emma believed them, but forgiveness didn't mean returning to old patterns. She accepted their apology with calm kindness, but she made something very clear. "I love you both. But I can't go back to being everything for everyone. I need space. I need boundaries. And I won't sacrifice myself to make things comfortable anymore." They nodded. This time, they didn't argue. For the first time in her life, Emma wasn't the background character in her own family story. She wasn't the fixer, the quiet one, or the emotional shield. She was finally someone they saw, someone who deserved peace. And she wasn't going to lose it again. Emma didn't rebuild her life overnight. It happened slowly and quietly, one choice at a time. She kept her distance from the old patterns and focused on things that finally made her feel whole. She threw herself into her work, not because she was running from anything, but because she genuinely loved what she did. Her leadership role grew into something even bigger, and she found herself guiding projects she once only dreamed about. Her co-workers respected her, and for the first time, she felt seen for her talent rather than her ability to keep peace. Outside of work, she allowed herself to form new friendships, the kind where she didn't have to earn her place. These were people who listened when she spoke, supported her without expecting anything in return, and enjoyed her company simply because she was herself. She learned how to laugh without feeling guilty, how to rest without feeling like she was falling behind, and how to say no without fear. Over time, she met someone who treated her with genuine kindness. His name was Daniel, a gentle, steady man who valued communication and respect. He noticed little things, how she hesitated before accepting help, how she apologized for things that weren't her fault. He never pushed, he simply showed her, through small everyday gestures, what it felt like to be cared for. Being with him felt peaceful, not heavy. She didn't have to prove anything. She didn't have to shrink to make someone else feel bigger. She could just be Emma. While Emma's life grew fuller and calmer, Lauren continued spiraling in the same cycle she had created for herself. She jumped from job to job, never staying long enough to learn from her mistakes. She tried new relationships, but none lasted. She spent money she didn't have to keep up the image she believed she deserved. Every time something went wrong, she looked for someone to blame. And every time she reached for Emma, whether through their parents or her own attempts, she found only gentle distance. Emma didn't fight. She didn't argue. She didn't try to teach Lauren a lesson. She didn't even mention the past. She simply didn't step back into the role that had drained her for so many years. She chose peace over guilt, boundaries over obligation, and self-respect over the comfort of old habits. That was her silent revenge. Not anger. Not payback. Not retaliation. Just living well. Sometimes Lauren tried to bring up the old dynamic, making small jabs or trying to spark arguments during rare family gatherings. But Emma no longer reacted. She didn't defend herself or try to fix anything. Her calmness confused Lauren, then frustrated her, and eventually left her feeling powerless. Because without Emma absorbing her bitterness, Lauren had nowhere to throw it. She had to sit with her own choices, her own words, her own consequences. That, more than anything, was what finally made Lauren realize the truth. The sister she tried so hard to belittle was the one person she needed, and could no longer control. Emma didn't celebrate that realization. She simply stayed on her path. She wasn't trying to hurt Lauren. She was just done hurting herself. By choosing a life built on love, stability, and peace, Emma became someone stronger than Lauren ever expected. Someone who rose above the noise. Someone unbreakable. Someone who finally understood her own worth, without needing anyone else to confirm it.